Greetings. So, I think it's clear what we are here to talk about today. On Saturday morning, the U.S. Delta Force, in what has been dubbed Operation Absolute Resolve, bombed Caracas, Venezuela, without provocation, knocking out power in the city, destroying anti aircraft batteries, and kidnapping President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, from their beds. The operation killed, according to current estimates, roughly 80 people, including 32 Cuban citizens who were tasked with Maduro's protection, as well as Venezuelan civilians. Maduro has been brought to the United States and is facing absurd criminal charges of drug distribution and felony gun possession in a Manhattan court, where he has pleaded not guilty. In his absence, Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in as president and has declared the country's absolute commitment to getting back their president and resisting U.S. control. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is claiming that the U.S. will now, quote, run Venezuela, end quote, and is being upfront that this is all about the oil. Just yesterday, Donald Trump announced that 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil will be taken by the United States from the country, and that has a valuation of about 2.8 billion US dollars. And as we speak, the US is in the process of trying to seize a Russian tanker off of Venezuela's coast, the fourth such seizure in the past 2 weeks. Trump Energy Secretary Chris Wright said at a speech at a Goldman Sachs energy conference in Miami yesterday that the U.S. will be taking, quote, indefinite control over Venezuela's oil industry, end quote. Escalation seems likely. The situation is dire.
Yeah, I feel bad predicting last week that there would be a major shock to the world order around Venezuela. It didn't happen the way I anticipated. But to discuss these developments, we have brought back friend of the show Vijay Prashad. He is the executive director of the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, author of several books, including The Darker Nations, Red Star Over the Third World, on Cuba, the highly relevant to today's developments, Washington Bullets. Vijay, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's interesting here in Santiago, Chile, because as they bombed Caracas, there were repercussions across the continent because South America has never been bombed by the United States before. This was the first bombing by the United States on South American soil. Central America had been bombed, Panama, other countries in Central America, never South America. So this is a shock, not only to Venezuela, but people in other countries. So that's where I am. And, we have earthquakes here every couple of weeks. This is like an earthquake.
Well, Vijay, you've been sort of at the cutting edge of research into American imperialism for decades. Tell us, what the hell is Trump's plan here? Where is this going? It seems, through those of us that are trying to follow this, we expected some kind of action against Venezuela, but this feels very incoherent, almost random, and the communication around it has been so confusing. So, could you help us make any sense of it? Not that Trump's brain is easy to make sense of.
Well, look, frankly, there's maybe two or three timelines that we can run through. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
these are important timelines. The longer timeline starts in 2001 when the Venezuelan people passed the organic hydrocarbon law, which basically said that they would be happy to work with foreign oil conglomerates, but that Venezuela needed to get a larger share of the oil profits. That was it. They didn't tell American companies to leave because Chevron continued to do business with Venezuela. It was ExxonMobil that said, this is outrageous, we're gone. And other oil companies also said, either you bring back the old rules or we're gone. And they left. And they didn't come back. That's a big issue. Yeah. And they began to basically use their massive money to demonize the government in Venezuela. In fact, the head of Barrick Gold, which is a big mining company in Canada, Peter Monk, openly said, we need to have a coup to get rid of Hugo Chavez. This was before the 2002 attempted coup against Chavez. So, right from 2001, a large section of the US ruling class wanted the Chavez and then later the Maduro government gone. So this is the long timeline. It's not like it starts on the 3rd of January 2026. That's one timeline. The second timeline is that Chavez dies in 2013, dies very young. He dies at the age of 58. The reason I say very young is I'm 58 and I don't want to die, and nor did Hugo Chavez. I met Hugo Chavez several times. He was a vital, vibrant man. His death at the untimely age of 58, when he was at his prime, is a huge blow to the Bolivarian Revolution. And Nicolas Maduro did not want to get this job of taking over from Chavez. Nobody wants to take over from somebody like Chavez. My God, if Chavez said to me, take over for me, I would cry. And that's exactly what Maduro did. In fact, in Jorge Ariaza's recollection called Chavez and the Irreversibility of the Bolivarian Revolution, in Chavez's, in Ariaza, who was Chavez's son-in-law, he writes in this little booklet that Nicolas Maduro started to cry, didn't want this job. As soon as Chavez died in 2013, he was thrust into the presidency. Oil prices collapse. Okay, Venezuela relied on the sale of oil. And then in 2015, here's the second timeline. In 2015, Barack Obama signs an executive order that effectively lays the quote unquote legal groundwork for the hybrid war against Venezuela. Basically, Barack Obama, Mr. Liberal, signs an executive order which says that any and every means to squeeze this government, sanctions, double sanctions, triple sanctions, etc., etc. It's on the basis of this so called executive order that Trump does what he does on the 3rd of January 2026. So the second timeline is the Obama executive order of 2015. The third timeline is the timeline of the massive Chinese investments in Venezuela and the massive influence of Russia over the government in Venezuela, Mr. Maduro's government. In fact, on the night before January 3rd, 2026, on January 2nd, 2026, the highest representative of Chinese President Xi Jinping, Mr. Qi, was in Caracas. He came with the director of Latin American Affairs in the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the deputy director of Latin American Affairs in the Chinese Foreign Ministry. They had a meeting with Nicolas Maduro, Delcy Rodriguez, and with Ivan Gilpin, the foreign minister. That meeting was then photographed and tweeted out by both the Venezuelan and Chinese side. So the Americans knew that the highest representative, Xi Jinping, was spending the night in Caracas. They still bombed the country with the Chinese high representative there. It's a huge insult to China. The second is the Chinese and Russian timeline. Get them out of Latin America. The third timeline is when the United States under Donald Trump releases the new national security strategy, which is a very interesting text, only 20 some pages long. It's one of the shortest of the national security strategies. Trump basically says there, because it's technically authored by Trump, yeah, it's signed under his name. Trump says that, look, the Chinese and Russians and others are strong, but we have to first take care of the Western Hemisphere. We need to exert our control over it. We need to go back to the Monroe Doctrine. And the Trump corollary of the Monroe Doctrine is do anything to make sure the Western Hemisphere is the United States. This comes just weeks before the 3rd of January. That's the fourth important start of a timeline. In that text, Mr. Trump effectively says that the whole of Latin America is moving rightward. He's right. The pink tide of Chavez has receded. The angry tide of Javier Milei, Daniel Noboa, yeah, Mr. Bukele, Nayib Bukele. Yeah, the angry tide is asserting itself. Bolsonaro's party in Brazil, where I'm talking to you from, we're going to soon have a far right wing president, Jose Antonio Cast. Father was a Nazi, he was a Pinochetista. Yeah, supporter of Pinochet. Okay, so Trump announces this in the national security strategy. So if you put these four timelines together, we want the oil. The liberals have given us license to do anything to squeeze Venezuela. We took their money. We told the Bank of England to hold their reserves. The Chinese and Russians must get out of this hemisphere. We got to smash them. And then this is our backyard. Joe Biden said, no, it's not a backyard, it's a front yard. Same mentality. Sorry, Joe, it's nobody's yard, it's their own country.
Right.
And then, my friend, final point, the overwhelming military superiority of the United States, what we in the Institute call hyperimperialism. Overwhelming. They don't spend $1 trillion to buy nothing. They've built the best radar jamming electricity. Look at how Trump spoke. We made it go dark. We have the means to do that. I'm not going to tell you about it. I mean, there's such a chilling sentence. They darkened the sky. I mean, Jen gave the summary. They have the capacity to do this. He did it. They bloody shocked the Venezuelans because nobody has ever seen these US weapons. Yeah, 150 military aircraft in the skies over Venezuela. Okay, this is not cruise missiles being fired from ships. They had 150 planes swarming the country. That is terrifying. You watch videos of that. Even Iraq did not experience that. By the way, Iraq was 23 years ago. In 23 years, they've improved their technology. The E-818 Growler aircraft, the whole aircraft which took off from Puerto Rico, the whole aircraft is radar jamming equipment. It just flies over Venezuela and paralyzes the radar systems. That means you paralyze air defense systems, then you just blow them up one by one. Boom, boom, they're out. And then when Delta landed in Maduro's compound, they look like Robocops wearing titanium suits. The Cuban and Venezuelan guards, 50 of them were killed defending the president, had no chance. They were getting blown out from helicopters from the sky. They had no air support. They were just getting picked out one by one. Yeah. And then when the Robocops arrive, what is Maduro going to do? Try to fight them? Are you crazy? I mean, he's not Osama bin Laden, man. He doesn't believe in the hereafter. He was like, what the hell? But look, he stood in the court, and here's the last thing. And what does he say? Four sentences. Judge asks him, 92-year-old New York judge. The judge on the Maduro case is 92-year-old, guys. He's 92 years old. He asked Maduro, are you Nicolas Maduro Moros? And Maduro answers, four sentences. Don't forget these four sentences. My name is Nicolas Maduro Moros. I am the president of Venezuela. I was kidnapped from my home. I am a prisoner of war.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sobering. It's terrifying the capacity that the United States has to turn off your country, send in the cutting edge of their jackbooted goons. And it's I mean, last week we mentioned Venezuela's efforts under Chavez and Maduro after him to build up their own food supply. They're now more or less fully sovereign in terms of food. They have a strong commune system, people's militias. The government has been distributing rifles, but like it's against that Lord of the Rings quote has been floating through my head these past few days. What can man do against such reckless hate? Like, what leverage at this point do the Venezuelans have?
Well, what can you do, man? Let me ask you a question, okay? You're there sitting in your house, yeah? I don't know where you live. Let's say you live in Los Angeles, let's say. You're in your house. And by the way, this has been experienced by the African American and Latino population in Los Angeles already. So I'm not giving you science fiction.
Yeah.
You're sitting in your house. There's suddenly helicopters flying above, yeah? They break your door down. They throw in stun, whatever the hell, yeah? They come running in dressed like Martians. You are in your bed. What the hell are you going to pull a gun from under the mattress and try to you crazy? You're terrified. Yeah, you can't fight them. That's the thing. You cannot battle the United States militarily. Some countries, maybe China, can defend against an attack. You can't fight them militarily. You have to fight them politically. Inside the United States, people need to come to the realization that this is not sustainable. Yeah, you guys are not, after a point, your population is not going to be able to have money to eat, but you're going to have the best guns. When they charge Maduro with gun possession, I thought that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was
I mean,
unbelievable.
for MAGA president, Second Amendment believer, to
Hmm.
charge Maduro with gun possession. First, you don't have the jurisdiction to charge him with gun possession.
Right.
Okay, he's living in Venezuela. I mean, he can do whatever. He's the president. He can do whatever he wants. Gun possession. That was the most ridiculous thing. You're a
Mhm.
MAGA president, man. You believe in the right to bear arms. What the hell are you talking about? I thought you were like a libertarian. You believe in the right to do whatever. But
Yeah,
anyway,
crazy how the National Rifle Association hasn't had anything to say, right?
come on, man.
Mm.
Of course
Come
they don't.
on. It's a great point. Send them an
Mm,
email.
yeah, I'm sure.
Tell all
Uh,
your listeners, everybody email the NRA to come out in defense of Maduro on charge number 2.
I
what
will.
a what an outcome that would be. Well, oh, I was going to say, we're hearing, I think this is something that needs to be pushed back on too, is we're hearing from liberal media that Maduro was some horrible dictator who was unelected, unaccountable. I think most of our listeners know we can't trust the billionaire owned media and about America's adversaries, but I'd love if you could help clear that up. I also want to say, it doesn't matter what kind of leader you are, the United States should not have the jurisdiction to do something like this. But I also think that we don't need to, people are just throwing that out there like, to be sure he was, and I don't really think that's like a thing that we need to be qualifying with. It
Mhm.
seems to me an absurd justification to give in the first place.
Let me make a couple of points about that because
Please.
it's a very complicated problem. Yeah. First, the issue of Mr. Maduro inherits an extremely difficult situation because, as I said, the oil prices collapse, the sanctions tighten, the Chavez heyday collapses. But did it collapse because of Mr. Maduro or because of the circumstances? When Hugo Chavez was leading the Bolivarian Revolution, there was high commodity prices, oil prices were up there. The exchequer of Venezuela was full. They were able to do Petrocarib, giving cut price oil even to people in Boston and New York City. Citgo provided cut price heating oil, and they could do all these things because oil prices were high. When oil prices collapsed and when the sanctions began to just garrot Venezuela, Maduro had to do all kinds of crazy things to keep it going. You know, it's one thing to celebrate, socialism when things are going well. The real socialist is tested when times are tough. You're tested when it's not just socialism. You're always tested when times are tough. It's easy to be positive about something when it's great. You got to be there in the hard times, man. And now I'm not giving marriage advice to people, but it's like that. It sounds like marriage. It's easy when everything is great, but it's in the tough times that you're tested as a person. Yeah. And so Maduro had to deal with a country in the most difficult period. He had to hold things together. He had to make compromises, tactical retreats of different kinds. If the state sector is sanctioned, they had to open things to the private sector. Otherwise, people would starve. They quote unquote privatized largely because they needed to get certain goods and services into the country. The United States sanctions the state sector in Iran also to push for privatization. It's
Mhm.
very clever. They always sanction the state.
Mhm.
And that's a way to basically enforce privatization in these countries. It's going to happen. You're a government feeling responsible for the population, you're going to allow the private sector to enter areas. So that's number one. That criticism of Maduro, I think, is very unfair. It comes from people who've never governed a damn thing,
Yeah.
who don't want to understand what it means to actually govern in the tough times. Yeah?
Mhm.
Govern in the tough times, a special period in Cuba, the retreats that the Cuban communists had to make, allowing tourism, allowing private business, things like that. You're trying to survive, for God's sake. Yeah, you can't be
Mhm.
pure as you're trying to zigzag through difficult times. Okay, so that's the first point about that. The second point is elections suck. They suck. I mean, no electorate votes 80% for anybody. Yeah, in Chavez's best elections, he got like high 60%. This is not like US allies, like Paul Kagame in Rwanda, 98%. Yeah, or other US ally Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, 99%. Okay, that's how they won elections. They won elections with like 90%. If you're going to rig an election, guys, you rig in the 90 range. You don't rig in the 58% range. When Nicolas Maduro faced the first presidential election in 2013, he faced a very good candidate, Henry Capriles of the opposition. He is the governor of Miranda State. Capriles got 49%. Maduro got 51%. The country is extremely divided between the strong working class Chavista base and the middle class and the elites. It's an extremely divided population. I can tell you that from spending a lot of time across Venezuela. Very divided population. It's not like 80% one way, whatever. In the election in 2024, I was there during that election. I was there during the fighting afterwards, the gangs outside where we were staying come threatening to kill all of us, whatever. It was really rough, that period after that election. Yeah, I was actually afraid walking around the street reporting, being followed around by all kinds of unsavory characters threatening you and so on, because the opposition was on the street. They were very, very aggressive. Oh, you're a foreigner, you must be a Maduro supporter, things like that. Directly they'd come up to you. Yeah, very aggressive. Okay, fine. But Maduro in that election again won by less than 10%. Very tight election. It's not like Edmund Gonzalez got 0% or 2%. He got like 40 something, 41, 42%. It was a tight election. Maduro got 54, he got 41. It's a believable result.
Mhm.
Okay. And also, it's an election. Elections suck, man, because like there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of intimidation involved from all sides. It's this form of politics we have is horrible. Look at American elections. I mean, it's just horrible. Like, who can defend elections?
Mhm.
The Voting Rights Act has basically been revoked. Yeah, working class areas, people are in long lines at the end of the day. The voting place closes. They can't get off from work to vote because it's not a holiday.
In Atlanta, where Lenore and I live, they passed a rule ahead of the election that you can't give people bottled water and snacks when they're waiting in the long line for the elect for to
Wasn't
vote.
that the wasn't that the episode from Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David gives somebody a bottle of water and then he goes to court? It's a hilarious. I think it's in the last season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's hilarious.
We're just
Yeah,
doing that in Atlanta now.
Mhm.
it's hilarious. I mean, and it's in Atlanta that the episode takes place. It's an
Really?
hilarious. It's actually not an episode. It's like a whole part of the last season. Several episodes are in Atlanta. It's a great show, by the way. One of the best episodes is the Palestinian fried chicken place. It's hilarious send up of, like the Palestinian fried chicken place is opening on the same block as a Jewish deli. So some friends of Larry David want to go and protest, and Larry likes the fried chicken, and then he starts a relationship with the Palestinian owner of the place and has to hide it from his Jewish friends who are very angry with him because they spotted him eating the fried. It's hilarious. It's Larry David at his best, by the way. He
Mm.
has got super interesting politics on the issue of Palestine. Very interesting. He pushes the envelope in that episode. Anyway, the point is that elections are hard. And no election in Latin America that I've been involved in has ended up without somebody saying it's fraud.
Mm.
So to specially say that Venezuela is fraud is crazy because 54 to 41% is not 90, it's not Paul Kagame. I've never heard the United States say that the elections in Rwanda are rigged. 90 flipping 8%. Never heard the US saying that the elections in Egypt were rigged and still are. Mr. Sisi, 90% or whatever the hell he gets. Yeah? Nobody complains about those, my friend, the US allies. Nobody complains. Elections
Mhm.
are tough. The United States should be the last country in the world that judges other people's elections. Stupid electoral college.
Mhm.
Yeah, George W. Bush wins through a court decision.
Mhm.
Through a court decision. Trump should not be talking about elections because he was so angry when he lost the election. Remember, he said, no, there was fraud. I mean, he should sympathize with how bad election processes are. So I don't get that dictator thing. Yeah. And frankly, yes, yes, it's true. Maduro is a dictator. He's a dictator against the rights of people with property. People
Mm.
who own property believe that their ownership of property should give them a larger say in society. And if property owners don't dominate the discourse in a society, they cry dictatorship. History has shown us this. Property owners have a legitimate, in their mind, right to over represent themselves in political discourse. And the moment they are silenced, they cry dictatorship. I'll give you a great example: China. In China, you are allowed to be a capitalist because, in fact, it's a people's republic. They are moving towards communism, but it's a people's republic. That's how they understand it. You're allowed to be a capitalist in China, but you cannot form a capitalist class. In other words, you cannot use your money to interfere in politics. You can't start a political party. You can't start a newspaper. You can't start a TV station. You can't start a political website. You can't have a chamber of commerce. If you start mouthing off to the press like Jack Ma did, they send you to school. Go read the complete works of Xi Jinping for 3 months, disappear from public sight. So people say, oh, it's a dictatorship. Well, yeah, exactly. It is to some extent a dictatorship against property owners or capitalists having a superior right of speech in their society. In the United States, property owners, the Musks, the Bezoses, the this, the that, have a superior right to speak than you do. So, in that sense, it's a dictatorship of the oligarchy. They control the political parties, they control the media, they own the media. Why am I saying control? They
Right.
own the media. Elon Musk owns the satellites. Yeah, they own the websites and the companies that allow us to do this, whatever this, I don't remember what we're using. I don't know who owns this company, but I bet it's owned by one of the majors. Yeah, it has to be. Anyway, I'm using Chrome or whatever it is as my browser. Yeah, they own the means of communication. So they don't experience the US as a dictatorship. You see, because for them, they are free. They are free to do what they want. When their freedom is constrained, like in China, then they say it's a dictatorship. But if you ask a Chinese peasant, are you happy? They're going to be like, I'm super happy because the democracy of the mouth, of the stomach, the democracy of the roof, the democracy of the book, these democracies have been fulfilled. Yeah, I also can say what I want. Yeah, there's no microphone listening in my house. Yeah, I can go to a public meeting and talk. I've been to villages where people criticize their local officials. Yeah, they feel confident. Okay, that's important. But remember, they're also giving constructive comments like, this is how we think it should be, not like that. Because they've become part of the local society. They haven't been alienated from it. They don't feel like they need to carry a gun into a mall and shoot everybody up. Yeah, because remember, in the United States, the only way you can speak and be heard is if you bring a gun into a movie theater and shoot people. Otherwise, nobody's listening to you.
You said something earlier that, and I know we're saving the hopeful stuff for the end, but this statement you made about leadership being like a marriage, and like you have to stick with this through the good and bad times. I think that's so important for us to remember, like, as organizers, like, as people that are fighting against the American empire. Like, it can feel so hard and so overwhelming so often, but there is the good with the bad, and like it's so important that we stick through and see these things to the end. And I really appreciate that framing for that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just want to add to that because, you put it very well as well that, we stick to the end. But we have to also remember that there must also be space for critique and so on. Yeah,
Mhm.
because nothing is perfect. But, it's always critique from within if you're
Mhm.
in a process. And as long as the leadership of a process hasn't betrayed all the principles, that's why I use the word there were tactical maneuvers. Yeah, you got to tactically privatize, otherwise, people will starve. But it's not a strategic shift. There's still a commitment to building a Bolivarian kind of socialism. It's its own weird socialism, man. If you've been to Venezuela, you'll know it's not like other countries. Every country will have its own path, will have its own culture of doing things. Yeah, Chinese building socialism is super efficient. They have a whole other thing, they have super disciplined society. Yeah, listen to Chinese music, it's extraordinarily disciplined. Listen to Venezuelan music, is bloody chaos, man. It's like it's a whole different. It's a Caribbean. It's Caribe culture. It's Caribe culture. It's a different world. You can't expect every socialism to be identical. Nicolas Maduro was a good Caribe socialist. He would dance, he would play the bongos. I mean, I've seen him get up there in a political meeting, move the band bongo player aside, and bang on the bongos, man. He's a super dancer. Yeah. He and Cilia love dancing in political rallies. He's a man of the Caribe, knows how to speak. He's a bus driver. He was a bus driver. He used to drive buses in Caracas, played in a heavy metal rock band, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that. Wow.
I
Yeah, he
saw
was
videos
he
of
was
it
the second
today.
guitarist in a heavy metal band called
It's
Enigma.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he became a union leader of bus drivers. Chavez saw him. He was in a political group called the Socialist League that had been founded by Delcy Rodriguez's father, Jorge Rodriguez, who was killed by the very same people who then created Marie Corina Machado, the Nobel winner. Yeah, Delcy Rodriguez's father was like their political mentor. Delcy Rodriguez, Nicolas Maduro came up in the same political organization. They've been comrades since they were kids. Yeah, Nicolas Maduro then, very importantly, is picked by Chavez, goes to the National Assembly, really shines. Chavez makes him a foreign minister. Yeah, he becomes the vice president under Chavez and foreign minister, and then Chavez asks him. But why I wanted to give you this story is that Delcy Rodriguez and Nicolas Maduro, they don't obviously agree 100% on everything, but these are old comrades. They've been at this a very long time. And there have been all these rumors that the CIA is putting out there that Delcy Rodriguez sold out Maduro, that they are, selling out the thing to Trump. They made a deal with him, etc. Tell you what's interesting about all this. The most important reference of Chavismo inside Venezuela in the last 10 years has been Diosdoro Caballo. Diosdoro is the leader of the Socialist Party of Venezuela, the PSUV, the party of Nicolas Maduro. He is the most important Chavista reference. In the US indictment against Nicolas Maduro Moros and Cilia Flores and Nicolas Maduro's son and so on, one of the six people indicted in that is Diosdoro.
Mm.
Diosdoro is one of the six people indicted. When Delcy Rodriguez had her big press conference, sitting next to her was Diosdoro, the guy who's wanted by the US. If she actually made a deal with the Americans, she would not be sitting next to him. Okay, so the information war happening now is intense. People, because they can't believe that the US government can go in and snatch somebody and leave, because they don't understand US military prowess. They think a deal was made. They think that something was cooked up. They think that Trump made a deal with Putin. You get Ukraine, I take Venezuela. All this kind of shit is taking place in the internet. It's all bogus, I'm telling you. It's all bogus. Tariq Ali said, "Oh, I talked to my friends in Venezuela, and I don't know who he talked to in Venezuela. They think Delcy Rodriguez made a deal with the Americans." I don't know who he's talking to. This is the daughter of Jorge Rodriguez. I very much doubt that she made a deal with the people who killed her dad. Okay, she and her brother adore their father. He was martyred as far as they are concerned. Okay, I don't think she's going to make a deal. Now, it is also probably true that she does not want another attack on Venezuela like this.
Well, of course, yeah.
She does not want not 80, not 100 Venezuelans, but 10,000 Venezuelans. She doesn't want Caracas to be turned into Khan Yunis,
Yeah.
because the Americans can do that. They did it in Gaza. She doesn't want Venezuelan cities to become Gaza. So she is going to do what it takes to protect Venezuela tactically. And I think she is 100% correct. I think she's 100% correct. Do what you need to do tactically to prevent another attack by the United States. Meanwhile, defend Nicolas Maduro and make sure that there are people in the United States saying, "Free this guy. It's ridiculous. United States can't do this. Free Maduro. None of this, well, I don't like him, but this is wrong. No, free him. So what? I mean, free him. It's outrageous. Violation of, like, what are you defending? You defending an ICE raid now in somebody's house? I mean, this is an international ICE raid.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that Americans were supposed to be deporting Venezuelans, not importing them. And that to a suspected narco trafficker. I thought the whole point was to get ICE to remove them from the US. Now you're importing them. It's very weird. Don't get Trump sometimes. Yeah, Jacob said, don't expect you to get inside Trump's head. Well, I tried my best, Jacob, but it's not easy. Okay, it's not easy. I tried to do that like being John Malkovich, to make myself small and parachute and crawl into his ear. Did you ever see that movie, Being John Malkovich?
Yeah.
Funny movie.
Yeah, I mean he's doing he's doing a victory lap right now, but like to watch him talk about this stuff, he seems cooked. Like he's mumbling about like the Don Roe documents, like the update to the Monroe Doctrine. It's which makes it all the harder to cut through. Like, okay, so what factions in his administration are directing this? Is it Rubio? Is it Miller who like wants full war, or just like this like lightning strike? How do we see this playing out, like going forward? Like how do we see the blowback from this globally? Because like Russia and China, like I can't imagine are going to take this, lying down. We already see a bunch of tankers trying to run the blockade. The Russian one thereafter right now. I How does this escalate, if at all?
Lenore, also I'd add to that really quickly. Marco said himself, Marco Rubio said that part of this is about putting pressure on the Cuban government as well, which is, of
Unquestionably.
course, at one of their primary enemies, because they hate that there's a socialist project 90 miles off the coast of the United States. But just wanted to add that before we got Vijay's response on that.
I mean, look, frankly, what can they do? The tankers may come, they may get seized, they may get through. I mean, this is going to be a mess for a very long time, because you started by saying, what's the end game and et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to overthink end games, because
Sure.
imperialism is the game.
Yes.
The game isn't an end, it is the exertion of power. So all of this is the end. um, January 3rd was the beginning and the end. The press conference by Trump after that, the beginning and, each one of, like, imperialism is the point. There is no point to it. The point is the exertion of power for economic gain, for conglomerates and so on. That's the point of it. Yeah. They don't mind permanent chaos. What's the problem with that? If you're making out from permanent chaos, you don't care. We care about permanent chaos. We care about the livelihood of ordinary people. We care about our families and friends and our neighbors and this and that. Yeah. They don't care. They care about the domination of the world. They care about power and property and the oligarchy maintaining its hold on everything. Yeah, that's what they care about. So the end actually is imperialism. That's the means and the end. It's self identical. See, we keep thinking that there are means, attack Venezuela, and then there's an end. That means we get the oil or something like that. Yeah? That's not how it works for imperialism is the maintenance of the structure. They are making good with the structure. They don't need anything to change as such. What they don't want is for the structure to be altered. In other words,
Mhm.
for the Chinese and Russians to show up in Latin America or whatever, the Chinese to continue to dominate the world trade game and to push the United States into a position of not being the largest, most important economy in the world. So now the US, not being such a big economic power, is using its military power. This was obvious. We predicted this 2 years ago. We said that this is not an era of inter imperialist conflict, like some people are saying, but it's an era of hyper imperialism, where the United States is going to use its military power everywhere and anywhere in order to secure its position as the preeminent power in the world, because it doesn't have the capacity to become a major economic power again. It just can't do it. There's at least three reasons why it can't do it. One is no government in the US, unless you have a really strong left wing government, no government in the US is going to be able to compel the billionaires to pay tax and to invest in their own country. It's not going to happen. No, Trump can't do it despite the MAGA promises. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene and so on are pissed with him. So, one is they can't constrain the billionaire class. Secondly, you can't force American workers to work 20 hours days, yeah, for the same pay. People are just not going to do it. They want to go home and watch TV and, whatever, like sleep, and they just don't want to do long days of work. Yeah. I mean, you've created an economy where you can borrow money, you can eat really shitty food, that's bad for you. You can get crap healthcare. I mean, people are used to this shit.
Hmm.
They don't feel like, I'm going to now go and work like really long hours in a tech company factory making supersonic chips. And, like I'm going to work really hard. I don't want to concentrate a lot. That discipline is gone, I'm sorry to say. Yeah.
Mm.
And that the right was supposed to bring that back. The American right wing was supposed to rediscipline the workforce. Yeah, stop them taking drugs. The whole fentanyl attack, stop the Midwest from getting down the sinkhole of crystal meth.
Mm.
Go back and work we're going to get rid of the migrants, get rid of the drugs, and then you are supposed to work long hours. I don't think that's going to happen, friends. Sorry to say. And the third thing is that the United States has gotten too used to
Mm.
importing technology workers. The schools, I'm going to sound like a right wing guy, but I'm talking facts now. Schools have just not been, they're super democratic. Yeah. American public schools and even the private schools, everybody gets a gold star. It's difficult to tell a kid you suck at math. You're a fucking failure at math. Or to tell another kid you're brilliant at math. Then the other kids feel bad. And they go home
Mm.
and they complain, and then the teacher gets into trouble. We've got into a
Mhm.
culture in much of the collective West, yeah, of not being like in Asia and in large parts of Africa. Teachers will tell you, you're really not cutting it, kid. You got to
Mhm.
study. You got parents have to give you tuition. You're a dummy. You're not reading. What's wrong with you? This is
Mhm.
completely unacceptable in the collective West. I'm not saying you should tell a kid they're a dummy. I think this is completely outrageous. My teachers, the way they talk to us in India, they would just say, you're dumb. Yeah. Or they would say to other kids, you are the bright ones. You sit in the front row and the dummies sit in the back. They used to design the classroom like that. The dullards in the last row and the real smart. I mean, I don't think that's good either. But
Mm,
it can't be like everybody's doing great. Half the class is failing mathematics. You can't
mm,
design the new chips like that or the
mhm,
new internet systems. You can't even create a workforce to manage that stuff. You have to import it. That's the whole
mhm,
problem debate about H1B. Get rid of all the tech workers that you're importing. Who's going to run the systems, guys? You're not training. So these are three serious structural problems. Yeah, the
mhm,
problem of billionaire tax, it's not going to happen. The problem of getting the workforce disciplined, very difficult to happen. Yeah.
mhm,
And thirdly, the production of a whole new class of people in universities that substitute for migrants who come in to do math and engineering. For a whole generation during globalization, the 90s and so on, all the smart Russian and Eastern European kids after the destruction of the Soviet Union and the Eastern European states, right, where they had really good math and science and so on, all those kids came to get degrees in the US. There was like a
mhm,
huge influx of these Russians who were in MIT, yeah, and then they all went to Wall Street to build derivatives and all that shit that collapsed the market, yeah.
mhm,
So now you're saying we don't want the migrants. We're gonna well, how are you gonna substitute them? Everybody is brilliant, yeah. How are you gonna do that? These are three. I'm just telling you. I know to some people's ears this is going to sound offensive. They're going to say, "Oh, that's offensive." What he's saying, yeah, it's offensive because he's hierarchizing kids, or he's saying that Americans are lazy. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying these are serious structural problems. How are you going to create a whole generation of mathematicians? That's what you're
mhm,
going to need to revive the economy.
I work in education. The literacy rate in the United States, even. I mean, it's not doing
Yeah,
great.
and I really want to insist, Jacob. I don't mean to be offensive saying these
No, I'm
things.
not. We're not. I'm not
I'm just
offended.
trying to be
Mhm.
structural.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like this disciplining the workforce issue is just a question of how many people want to go and pick strawberries. And if they don't want to pick strawberries, how many people with a US passport want to bend over in the hot sun picking strawberries? And if they don't want to pick strawberries, how many people are capable of designing the robots that will do the picking of strawberries? Neither of those two things are going to happen unless you import them.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Well, before we ask our last question, Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add or ask, or Lenore?
I mean, yeah, you've summed it up very succinctly. Like once you deindustrialize, once you export capital somewhere where it's much easier to exploit workers who will do these things that Americans don't want to do. Like you can the only way left to pay for everything here is in plunder. Yeah, and that's and
mhm.
that's what's going on right now with the 30 to 50 million barrels of oil.
Well, and I think this point about education is so important because we see this like dumbing down of the general public that's been happening. I think you can pinpoint it to a few different places, but like No Child Left Behind in Bush was a big part of it. And they've also been so they've been passing kids to the next grade that can't read or aren't proficient in whatever the subject is, while at the same time cutting like tutoring services and things so that they don't become proficient. And a lot of the reason for that is to fulfill this like school to prison pipeline and just make a very cheap workforce that we can exploit, while at the same time we're importing the H-1B visa workers, the higher level, the more educated people we're just importing in. But then you get this huge contradiction where they're like, well, we don't want any brown people in the country, or we don't want immigrants. So then they've created this conundrum for themselves where the white people, the Americans, can't fill those jobs, but they're not allowing other people to come and do it. So they've created this problem themselves. It's very interesting
Mhm.
to watch.
Well, hence the hyperimperialism, right? Hence just having to go and knock in heads to
Mhm.
Then
solve
we
their
just take
problems.
shit.
And
Yeah.
then as you see in OU, of course, like what do you have left but American institutions of education as places of ideological reproduction, as means of hounding trans people out of public life for daring to fail you for writing a subliterate essay.
Just one thing, that is a really interesting point because that is interesting. It's not that education is not a place of discipline. It's not that education is not a place. It's just that they want to discipline certain people.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
very good point. You have to be disciplined into gender roles. Somehow that is more important than disciplining you into fucking mathematics.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
focus on map reading or focus on mathematical literacy. Like, you suck at whatever, calculus. Improve
Yeah.
your calculus instead of saying, no, you're not a boy, you're a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is there's a very good point you made. It's not like on principle, children are not disciplined. It's just that they're wasting the disciplinary energy on the
Yes.
fucking bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
in my house, I don't have a sign outside the bathroom that says men or women. It's just a bathroom. Just get rid of urinals, which are the stupidest places to urinate anyway. Create
Yes.
stalls and relax.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. I get it. There are a lot of predatory men in the world. I get it. Yeah, I get it. I mean, you know what would be better than men and women is age segregated bathrooms.
Interesting.
Don't allow adults into children's bathrooms because they're weirdos, adult weird men. I mean, I'm like, pedophilia is a fucking horrible thing. Yeah, I get it. I understand how the right has mobilized pedophilia against the question of sexuality. But then the solution is under 18 bathrooms and over 18 bathroom. Yeah, kids go and pee in one place, let them all pee all over the place. Anyway, I don't want to deal with that. And then have a grown up's bathroom. Okay, a woman, 45-year-old woman, doesn't want to be in a bathroom with a man. Yeah, fine. Then in that building, have five places which are like, how disabled bathrooms are, one person goes in and locks it up. Have those as an option.
Mhm, mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yep.
don't make a big deal of that's a fucking architectural solution. It's not war against kids, man. It's an architectural solution. So I very much like your point about it's not like they're not disciplining. I take that back. It's not that they're not disciplining people, but they're wasting their time on the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
It's a
Absolutely.
Well,
completely bloody useless debate. Every time I get into this thing, I always feel like I'm on Mars, man. It's like the bathroom debate is the dumbest debate. Like, I get it. Somebody's uncomfortable. Their kid comes to them and says, "Sorry, I'm not a boy anymore. I think I'm a girl." The parents are uncomfortable. I get it. They're uncomfortable. They're not used to this, or for 7 years they had a boy in the house and now they're going, I get it. It's not easy. You think it's easy for the kid? It must be even more difficult for the kid. Forget the parents. I understand these things aren't easy. Yeah, these are very but why can't a civilization have these discussions discreetly? In other words, without yelling and screaming. Yeah, it's a
Mhm, mhm.
discreet.
100%.
By discreet, I mean have it in a civilized way. Like, okay, we get it. Maybe there should be some conversation about, you know some drugs, what age should be the minimum. I mean, I find that to be a very acceptable conversation, that if you're under 12 you shouldn't take certain drugs, you shouldn't have certain surgery. I think that conversation is okay. On the other hand, I'm super against circumcision. So I don't, somehow it's okay to go and tamper with somebody's penis when they're an infant, but that's what I mean. I'm super against circumcision. I don't know, not in a kind of proselytizing way. I just don't think it's necessary.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, that may have been okay in the ancient world when people got
Mhm.
diseases. It's a little bit like the whole thing about milk and shellfish. I get it. When there was no refrigeration, it was a bad
Mhm.
idea. But anyway, the point I'm making is very good point you made. I think it's correct. I think this should be emphasized more, that it's not that schools are not disciplining people, they're just wasting their time.
Absolutely. Well, the last question we have for you is many people in the United States right now feel hopeless in the face of sort of our government's violence. We can protest, we can vote, we can call our senators. A lot of people feel like that doesn't matter. We're not saying it doesn't, but what can you say to maybe give encouragement on how we can take meaningful action? What you would suggest as someone in the United States who has a budding anti-imperialist consciousness? they should do next?
I mean, firstly, I don't need to tell you what you should do because you people are already doing it. I mean, I watch images from across the United States of massive protests for Palestine, protests, for the release of Maduro, even in New York. Yeah,
Oh
there
yeah.
were protests for that. I mean, what I would say to people is just don't feel alone.
Mm.
Join an organization, get involved in things. Yeah, don't try to go into a meeting and maximize your demands. If you are for trans rights, you don't have to walk into a meeting on the first day and say irreducible demand is 100% acceptance of trans rights. First, stay with where the people are, build trust and love and fellowship with them, and then you can put other things on the table. What happens is that people have also, because the attacks are so severe, they've become maximalists in their demands. If
Hmm.
you don't take this position, I'm canceling you. No, no, you have to teach, you have to learn to teach as a political person. So people need to be more in community, not be isolated and atomized, and become increasingly pure in their heads. The more pure you get in your head, the harder it is for you to deal with other people. You go into a political group and somebody pisses you off and you're like, I hate all of you, I'm gone. No, no, no. There are people. Nobody's going to be perfect. Everybody's just a bunch of ridiculous people. Yeah, just like you. Just like you. Everybody's ridiculous like you. You're ridiculous in some other way than you imagine. You think you are pure. Marx writes about this. He says sometimes the state feels like it has liberated itself from society because it passed all these laws. But the state can't liberate itself from society. It's rooted in society. So if society is prejudiced, the state is prejudiced. And then Anatole France wrote a great line that Martin Luther King Jr. used to quote: the state, in its infinite majesty, proclaimed that nobody can sleep under the bridge.
Mm.
It's a great line. It's an equal law, right? Nobody's allowed to sleep under the bridge, but the line only impacts the homeless.
Hmm.
Right.
Mhm.
So, universal law in an uneven society can have uneven impact. In the same way, I, as a human, believe that I am liberated and emancipated from all social ills, but I'm not. I'm filled with contradictions and prejudices, like all
Hmm.
of us are. And we have to learn, we have to cultivate generosity in building politics. Yeah. So I would say to people, get involved. There are so many interesting things happening in the United States. Get involved in some group. If there's no group in your area, start a group, a reading group, a discussion group, whatever. Try to make a group that's not an identity group. Try to make a group based on a set of issues. So you have a broad range of people. If it's fine to have, like, I don't know why I'm picking, you can say like a, I don't know, feminist group. Let's say it's fine to have a feminist group. Feminists gather, they give each other strength. That's great. But then create another group as well where there are people who are not feminists, that you can then bring new ideas to them. They may be trade unionists, they may have all kinds of appalling social ideas. Let them meet you. Yeah, I always tell, particularly people who are now struggling on the trans issue, yeah, don't want to feel humiliated or stepped upon in a political group, but cultivate generosity towards people who need to learn. Yeah, and you have your own personal limits, but cultivate it. I come from a generation where it was very difficult to be gay. It was impossible, to be in whatever. It's very hard for people to talk openly about these issues. Now the space to talk is there. That doesn't mean people understand you. Imagine, you should celebrate this era where at least these words are available. They are ridiculous, by the way. I mean, I find someone like LGBTQ, at the end of the day, we'll parcel ourselves into, eternity. Yeah. Every individual is different than everybody. If we keep parceling ourselves, yeah, it does enter a sense of ridiculousness. It's a bit like the old racist way of dividing the races.
Mhm.
Octoroon, quadroon. How many drops of white blood do you have? I don't know what 1/16 was. I know octoroon and quadroon. 1/4, 1/8, 1/14, 1/16, 1/32. I mean, sometimes even in the world of sexuality, it's becoming insane. Like people are like so discreetly
Mhm.
shaped by, you want to define yourself by this particular practice. Relax, you don't need to. At the end of the day, we want to be emancipated as humans. Yeah, that's what we want. We want recognition for multiplicity, but emancipation as humans. I don't want to be emancipated as a discrete entity. I want recognition as who I am, but I also want emancipation as a human. I don't want to be marked by my particularity only forever. Yeah. Create broader groups, build movements, let people understand. Yeah. You can change the world. The one nice thing about the MAGA whole thing is it's not sustainable. It's not
Mm.
sustainable. It can't sustain itself. Now, that's a curious thing to say because it may sustain itself for pretty long, but not forever. It's unsustainable. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know where she's going. She may end up being like a Code Pink member. You never know. Yeah. She
Oh,
met
wow.
them so happily. Yeah. You never know. I'm just trying to say you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She said, I thought the whole point was to help Americans. I agree with her.
Mm.
I actually agree with that line.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Make America great. Go and do it. But you can't do it by bombing Venezuela.
Mhm.
Go and do it,
Absolutely.
guys. Improve the cities, improve the towns, build better trains. I agree with the slogan, make America great. I don't know about the again part because, slavery and so on. But make it great, man. What's wrong with that? Make every country great. Make humanity great. Yeah?
Mm.
I don't have a problem with that. Trump, you want to improve the train system? Go ahead. Amtrak is just terrible.
He just wants the trains to run on time.
Yeah, yeah, nothing wrong with that, actually. We should never let the fascists claim that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
Mhm.
also
that's
want the
fair.
trains to run on time. I
Yep.
want things to be efficient. I like slight efficiency. Like, what if I'd come half an hour late to our gathering? It would have been rude to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would have been rude to you. So I'm okay with efficiency. Yeah, that's okay. The other day I was walking to my office, and I'll leave you with this, okay? I was
Yeah.
walking to my office the other day, and it was 7:30 in the morning, and I'm walking down the street in Santiago, just down here. There's a guy waiting for the bus, and he's reading a biography of Benito Mussolini. 7 o'clock in the morning. I almost engaged him in conversation, as I do to all strangers. To the chagrin of my 4 daughters, I engage everybody in conversation. I almost asked him, listen, my friend, what the fuck are you doing reading a Mussolini biography at 7 in the morning? Are you preparing for caste to come to
Mm.
power in a few months? Or are you working for him to figure out how to enact the Mussolini program? Yeah, who knows?
Well, Vijay, we very much appreciate you coming on. Folks can check out your work at the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. We're going to link all of that below. Is there anything else you want to point people to that you've worked on or any projects like that?
Listen, I'm just happy that you guys are doing this podcast. I really want your podcast to grow big and become one of the top podcasts. Please strive for that, which means, Jacob, you need better lighting.
I will get better
Um,
lighting.
yeah, which means once in a while you might want to show yourselves and not just do audio.
Mm-hmm.
Which means go and win.
Mm.
You gotta have the winning instinct to be the best podcast. First, you gotta be the best socialist podcast, and you gotta be the best be the top at Spotify. Nothing wrong with that attitude, guys. You don't get a gold star just for trying. Not not between us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Vijay. And everyone have a great day.
Take
Bye.
care, Jared. Thank you.
Pages upon pages, words with the form of the worker's brow. Got my nose to the spine, nose soaking up all the rhythm of their will now. looking